a look at a local entrepreneur, and a behind-the-scenes look at a local pastor. All that and more coming up now on Joy in the City, True Stories. Joy in the City is a program highlighting people and organizations having an impact on our city. All too often, we hear about the problems and dysfunction in our culture, but we are coming with a different approach as we take a look at the good things going on right here in our community. I'm Lindsay Irvin, and you're about to see what God is doing in our city. Transitioning from holding a political office to the business sector is the life of John Eichelberger, a local businessman. We had the opportunity to talk with him about his time as a state senator and how that impacted his life and what he's been doing since leaving office.
So most people know you by your public service. So just start out by giving us a little synopsis of how that journey began for you.
Well, I was always interested in politics and government, and when I was in college, I was a political science major at Penn State Altoona, and got involved in Young Republicans there. And then I ran for county committee. You know, those are the precinct by precinct people that work in the Republican or Democrat parties, and I got elected there. And then got elected to the Republican State Committee. In fact, at the time, I was the youngest member of the Republican State Committee. I forget how old I was back then, but I was in my early 20s. I got elected to State Committee. And then Bill Stauffer, a lot of people would remember Bill, was retiring as county commissioner. And a lot of people would approach me about running for county commissioner, and I thought, you know, that would be an exciting position to have. And I did that. So I ran, a field of 10 candidates in a primary, tough race, and we won, and then I was a commissioner for 3 terms. And then during my 3rd term as commissioner, I was approached by people around the state to run against Bob Jubileer, who was the president pro tem of the state senate. And people felt that it was really time for a change in that position, and there was a lot of support for me to run, so they did some polling. Interestingly, people wouldn't know, but if you know the name Kellyanne Conway, who was one of President Trump's right-hand people for several of the years he was in office, she did my polling for me back then, and we used her and decided to run, and so I ran for state senate and won, and I was there for 3 terms.
Wow. So what are some things that you worked on during that tenure that you found you were passionate about?
Well, there were a lot. I mean, I worked on a lot of things. In fact, some of my friends and people that had helped me in the campaign said, "John, you can't do everything down here. You know, you have to." You know, but I was very involved in social issues, and I chaired the pro-life caucus in the Senate. I sponsored the marriage protection amendment to the state constitution so that marriage would be protected between one man and one woman. That was constitutional. Of course, that's been decided by the Supreme Court, and that's a problem we have in our country now. Worked on a lot of those kinds of family issue kind of legislation. I chaired the local government commission for the legislature, so I worked on a lot of local government things. My background as a commissioner, so I sponsored a lot of things. 3rd-class city code, a lot of the tax laws, a lot of those things that affect local government I did. And then I did a lot of reform things. And my license plate says reformer. So we did a lot of things to change transparency in government and just try to clean up the system as best we could. And it's very slow and very difficult to do. But we did make some change, and some things are better, I think, for the public with the help of a lot of other folks in Harrisburg.
How hard is it to navigate your moral/Christian beliefs and then what's going on in politics? How do you keep all that together, or separate? I don't know.
Well, I mean, some people I think do keep it separate, and that's always interesting to me when I hear people say, well, I'm against abortion, but publicly I think the law should be a certain thing, or it should be permitted, or whatever. I don't understand how you think that way. I mean, if you're convinced that something's bad, and it's not a good choice and it damages our society, then you shouldn't support that for public policy. I never found that it was difficult for me. I mean, you just do what you're supposed to do as best you can. None of us are perfect, and certainly I'm not. But you have certain morals and a compass that you live by, and you work through that, and that is reflected on how you vote, what you sponsor and do, what you do in the community, how you conduct yourself. You don't go down, far away from home, get into trouble, do things you wouldn't do. It's just how you live your life. As Christians, I think most of us do that. But sometimes in public life, you see people that act one way here and act another way somewhere else.
It's like they struggle to be true to who they are on one way or another, I think, anyway.
Yeah.
But you started this journey very young. So what would you say, what advice do you have for someone who is thinking about entering the political realm?
I think the path that I took, I always thought was a good path. That I started by working on campaigns, getting to know people, spending time with elected officials and working with them on things, reading and studying things, and of course I took it in college, so that was my major in college, so I learned a lot about theory and so on there. But a bit of broad base is so important in government. People that have some kind of niche lifestyle, where they do certain things and that's kind of their whole world, I don't think that works very well when you're in public life, because there's so many things you have to deal with, so many issues. And, when you're county commissioner, I can remember I tell people my first term in office, and I'm not exaggerating, I had a headache almost every day. And that's true. You get in there, you have to learn about solid waste, which, how many people know a lot about how the system of solid waste works and recycling and all those kinds of things. The prison system, all the social service agencies that are out there, what happens in the courts. We dealt with 5 unions and in union negotiations and just so many different things that you'd have to deal with every day. Budgets, personnel issues, just many, many things. And there's no downtime. And you can't afford to say, well, I'm new, so I really don't want to make a decision on this, or it's not going to be a good decision because I didn't really read up on it, or I don't understand this. You have to understand it. You have to work hard and learn as quickly as possible so that you can do your job.
Now you have segued into the private sector. What are we working on now?
Well, I have an insurance business in Altoona, Complete Insurance Services, and I've owned that for 22 years. So I've always kept my hand in the private sector while I was in government, which I, again, think is a good idea. We always had to make payroll every couple of weeks and pay taxes and do things and make decisions. And it's a good business for me in public life because we do a lot of commercial work. So I talk to all sorts of people all the time about what they do, how their business is, if it's good or bad, what problems they're facing, if they think regulations are too onerous, code enforcement is too tough, or the state law doesn't allow them to do certain things that make sense, or things like that. So I've learned a lot over the years from clients, and a lot of social things too. A lot of things they've come to me. I remember when I was a commissioner, Ku Klux Klan came to town, and I had some Jewish clients that came to me, and they said, "You've got to stop this," and they wanted to use county facilities to have a rally. So I had Paul Johnson, who's a local pastor, and some of my Jewish clients, and we got together and they said, look, they don't like us. They will expect us to come out against them, but if the white Protestant community comes out against them, that'll stop them. And I never forgot that. And we formed a group called Blair County United. We had 500 people march through downtown Altoona. And they came. We had to let them come to use a public facility. That's what our attorneys told us, and I think was correct. And they never came back. They never had any support here. They never had anybody show up at their event. And I think we handled it very well, and they got the message that the white community here didn't want them in Blair County.
So, do you still feel fulfilled in the private sector, or was that a hard transition for you?
It wasn't, because my focus was always at home, my family, friends, business, things like that. Some people I know, and this is always a dangerous thing, if you go to Harrisburg or Washington, and then that becomes the focal point of your life. That's where you're centered. That's where your friends are, and where all the excitement is for you and your life. That's where you want to be. And that's a dangerous, if that flips in your mind, that's a dangerous position to be in. And then you need that, and then you're down there, and then you're not really living, I don't think, the way you were meant to live at home with your community and your family and your friends and things here. And then if you lose that at some point, and you always do, sooner or later you retire or lose your position or whatever, then it's a tough transition for you. For me, I'm comfortable just going to my office every day, and it's challenging, and trying to help people there. I help people there every day. People have questions or need something, and we help them, and it's very fulfilling.
What is in the future for you, former senator? What's God got for you out there?
Well, I don't know. I enjoy what I'm doing, and I'm satisfied doing that. I always tell people a factual answer, if the circumstances were right, I would consider running again for something, but they would have to be right. I'm not looking for that. I'm not saying I never would. I'm open to it, but I'm not looking for it. But if the circumstances are right, I would consider it. But they may never be something, the stars lined up the way I want them to be lined up, and I just continue to do what I do.
Well, as always, was excellent to sit here and talk with you today. Thank you for everything that you accomplished in that political sector, and thank you for the things that you have done in the private sector and also in the Christian community as well.
Thank you. Thanks for having me today.
Kick off summer by joining faith-filled believers from all across the city for Saturate Altoona. This is a free summer worship series unifying believers throughout our community. You're invited to join worshipers every Sunday night during the month of June at Heritage Plaza, beginning at 6:30 p.m. You'll hear from 12 different faith leaders of several denominations and musicians from many churches. You don't want to miss Saturate Altoona every Sunday night in June at Heritage Plaza in downtown Altoona.
A behind-the-scenes look at a local pastor.
I'm associate pastor at Center City, but I'm in charge of production, so a lot of photography, video, lighting, audio. I don't really necessarily do all of it, although I can. I just kind of oversee it, and that doesn't necessarily mean that I know all of it. I think I'm a good motivator, so I think that's why I'm in charge of that, maybe. I worked in the eye field for 20 years and was a surgeon and did photography of the eyes, and won various awards and had photos on the covers of magazines. So there's a little tidbit that I was. I loved what I did. I mean, I worked for Laurel Eye Clinic in town here, and absolutely loved what I did. I loved the doctors, I loved the staff, I loved that work, and made my way to manager, and was manager for about a year, and then one morning the Lord woke me, and like I had a prophetic word for about 90 minutes and wrote it down. And in that word, I mean, he told me several things, but in that word, he told me that my time at Laurel was done, and that I needed to find a replacement, and that my assignment was complete. And I thought I was going to retire from there, but I didn't know where I was going to go. And sharing that with my wife was difficult, because I told her I don't know how to tell you this, but I know that I'm done. Like, I know that I have to leave, but I don't know where to go. I don't know where we're going. And the crazy thing is we literally just bought our house in Altoona, so it was one of those things, really, and I think because it was so profound, I wasn't worried. Like, I really wasn't scared, because I knew this was something that was unlike anything that ever happened in my life, and I knew that it was God. So I had peace about it. Yeah. And man, Amy was just a champ. I mean, she was fantastic. She didn't bat an eye. She literally just held out her hand and she said, "Give me your hand." She said, "Let's go. Let's jump." And so her faith, was right there with mine. And so we started the process of exiting, even though I didn't know where I was going. And but God knew in that whole transition. God knew what what was supposed to be. And I had been talking with our pastor about the word and what was happening. And it was literally the day before I turned in my resignation. He and his wife stopped by and said that they had felt in prayer that they were supposed to offer me a position as associate pastor, and through prayer. And so it was kind of amazing. I mean, it was just mind-blowing. But so the transition was good. I mean, I worked out 60 days because I did a lot there. I was in surgery and ran the LASIK program, and so training, getting people in place for that, and then made the exit. And so I went from helping people with their vision to helping people with their vision. Yeah, it's kind of cool. I had done youth work, previously, and probably for 15 years I had done youth work prior to, and so I knew that there was a calling on my life, but I just didn't know where. And honestly, I had wondered, like, God, what does it look like? Because even though I loved what I did, there was always the part of me that felt like this isn't the end all. Like, working in the eye field, I loved it. I accomplished a lot, but I knew that wasn't really where God was taking me. And so, getting there was a process and progress. And so my calling, I knew. I saw on Facebook one day, somebody had a post that said, because I had always felt this call to ministry. And I thought, well, I don't even know what that looks like, to pastor a church or whatever. I mean, I worked with youth and it was great. I worked under somebody, but I read a post that stuck with me, and he said, "What if your call was to actually get behind somebody else and push their ministry, their calling forward? Could you do that?" And man, that struck me, and I realized at that point that God was calling me, to get behind Pastor Jim and what God was doing in his life. And I knew that was what I was called to do right now. And so I accepted that, and that's what I've been doing. So the church literally just turned 5 years old, about a month ago. And so Pastor Jim is the lead pastor, and he is a busy guy. And my role is, I'm at the church every day, typically from 8 to 4, and do a lot of in-house ministry. My wife and I do counseling, and oftentimes that extends beyond the borders of time, as we know it, because people work and people have lives and all that too. So, that is kind of our role, is to shepherd the people and pastor, and I love it. I feel that that's what I'm called to do. And, I always, I listen to Pastor Jim preach, and I always think, man, I wish I could preach like that. But I realize that God has gifted us with gifts and talents, for what he wants for our lives. So what he's given me, he may not have given you, or he may not have given Pastor Jim or my wife or whatever. And so for me just to step into what, he's gifted me with, I can't do anything more. And so that's what I do. Answer calls. I mean, we have a lot of people that stop by the church that, we're in desperate times right now. A lot of people are hurting and are searching and are needy. And so they stop by, and a lot of times through the day, we take time and minister and help any way we can, whether it's financially or with food or with clothing, or pointing people in the right direction to get help with utility bills and things like that. Well, we've been doing a lot of renovation on a church that's old. The building itself is old, and it's beautiful. It's fantastic. We are still, we're right now in the process of, I think our next move is probably to get heating and air. The furnace system in there is kind of old, and but it works. But I don't know how efficient it is, and so we need some help in the wintertime when it's heating, and it kind of puts us out of our comfort zone, but it works. A lot of people get involved in that and do that. Same with the cooling right now. We're using a lot of fans. We shifted our service forward an hour to try to get in the cool part of the day. So as far as praying for our congregation, we have a kitchen. We have an industrial kitchen that we want to, that's another thing that we want to get up and running, because we feel that one of our goals is to feed the city. There's a lot of people, like I said, that are hurting in that area, and we just want to be a part of helping take care of that. So, I'd say financially, to get over that hump, to get air and heating in the building, and also to fix our kitchen. When you're a young church, there's a lot of growing pains, and we find that we need a lot of grace, grace with each other. And, it's kind of like as families get bigger, brothers and sisters, they have to learn to live with one another and really share the space. And, we find that out too. And it's been good. The growing pains are not a bad thing. They're a good thing.
This segment is brought to you by Harry's Construction, whose motto is, "If you can dream it, we can create it." They are the kitchen and bath design experts, so call Harry's Construction for all your remodeling needs.
As we close out today's show, here are a few thoughts from our director, Troy Ferguson.
There are times that we are seeking for God to bless us, and we want certain things, certain elements in our life. It might be financial, it might be relational, it might be job, whatever it is. We're seeking blessings from God. We all enjoy God's blessings. But sometimes God gives us something, to provide something with us, to us, that actually becomes a burden. And let me tell you what I'm referring to. When Kelly and I moved into the home that we're in right now, we loved our house, and there were several things that we liked about it. But one of the things that I remember when I walked around the house is how many lights were in the house. I walked around our house, and no matter where I was, on the back porch, the front porch, and throughout the house, there was just illumination everywhere. And I went through the house one day and I counted how many lights that we had. We actually had, at the time, we had 105 lights in our house. 105 different lights. Now my point is that at the time that was wonderful. I thought no matter where we go, it's lit. I like being lit. I like having the control of having light. And when you go to a room, you go to a porch, everywhere we went, we had the opportunity for light. But one thing I realized is as we lived there for a while, lights go out and they need replaced. When you are blessed with 105 light bulbs, that's a wonderful thing. But the burden of keeping up with replacing 105 light bulbs can be overwhelming. there are situations that God has blessed you with and God has blessed me with. But through that process, through that journey, there are things that we need to do to maintain what God has blessed us with. It might be a job. God blessed you with a job. And to maintain a good situation in your job, you need to work hard. You need to do things that are sacrificial at times. For me, in my little simple illustration, light bulb changing has become a burden to me. I see light bulbs all the time here and there in the house that have gone out, and I have to go buy certain kind of bulbs for this light and different bulbs for this light and this one over here, and the fan needs this. It's just, we have a variety of lights, and because of that, I need a stockpile of different types of bulbs. It becomes a burden. But I've come to the point to say, God, I'm blessed with all this light, and I will deal with the responsibility of replacing these because I don't want to go against the blessing you've given me. In the Bible, we see stories where God's people were in bondage. They were in slavery. And through Moses, they were pulled out of slavery. We know in Exodus it says that the Israelites were pulled out, and where he says, let my people go. And we know that they went from being in bondage and slavery to being free. But when they became free, they might have had the joy of having freedom, but then there was responsibility of food, of different situations that now they had to go to find and work and find their own food and find their own things to sustain life. It became a burden, and they complained about it. And I know as you read the Bible, you can see this, that eventually God poured out manna from heaven to provide food from heaven for his people. But in the meantime, in between bondage and in between the ultimate blessing, we see them having to work for things and complain and gripe about things. They're blessed because they were free, but yet they also complained because there was a responsibility or things that they had to do in response to that. You and I have things in our life that we are blessed with. It might be a job, it might be kids, it might be family situations, it might be school, whatever it is. We have a blessing of God that we can do different things in our life. But we also know that sometimes there's a burden to continue and maintain whatever God has blessed us with. My challenge today is that you keep pushing through, even if it's a burden, even if it's a sacrifice, even if it's a challenge. Keep pushing through because it is a blessing from God. And anything that God has provided, He will give you the ability to be sustained in and through it. So do that today. Do that this week. Do that this month. Change the light bulbs out. It'll be all right. Have a blessed day.
That's all the time we have today. Thanks for watching Joy in the City, True Stories. Let me encourage you to watch other episodes of people and organizations having an impact on our community on ABC 23 at 5:30 a.m. and 12:30 p.m. every Sunday. You can also catch us each week on our Facebook page and YouTube channel. Until then, be encouraged because God is moving in our city.